All right, welcome to the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show as the roles are reversed and we get to interview Joshua Coursey with the Muley Fanatic Foundation, who normally does a lot of interviewing himself on his podcast, Wild Things and Wild Places. And Josh has been on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show before, but I wanted to get a chance to get Josh on because I want to know how Mule Deer Days was.
Oh my goodness. We're recovering. We were 100 miles an hour burning the candle at both ends for 5 days, really. It was a 3-day show, but the setup prior to it's a heavy lift. And there's too many people. I would be remiss to not recognize that there are so many people involved to be able to pull that event together. But there is one individual I would like to highlight. One particular individual, and I had never met this individual until this weekend. Wyoming Game and Fish Department has a volunteer database that they are able to send out requests if you're interested and your calendar is free. And we had this gal who works at the Port of Entry named Tinsley Brownlow, who showed up and just said, "No, I'm here to help. Let me do whatever, and I'll carry the load." This gal was a rock star, and anybody who knows Tinsley, I'd never met her before, but if anybody knows Tinsley, she is not one who's probably going to tell you that this is what she did all weekend long. She is just very humble but I'm telling you, she carried a huge load for us, and there was many others, but just the thought that I even had joked with her. I said, "Tinsley, do you have a life?" You're spending your free time on a weekend to drive down to Rock Springs on your own dime to get a hotel from an email that Game and Fish said, "Hey, if you don't have anything going on, we need some help at Mule Deer Days. And this is your idea of fun." And, we started very early and we went very late every night. There was a dinner Friday night and a dinner Saturday night. And then, of course, the show wrapped up on Sunday at the events complex. But yeah, she manned a booth and just did anything and everything. And so, yeah, there's many volunteers that help with this, but this gal was a rock star.
I have goose pimples, not just because I'm cold, which I am, but I have goose pimples, Josh, because volunteerism is a big topic that I have. And to have that drive that you mentioned that Tinsley has, I hope people who are listening or folks might take a leaf out of her book or encourage their kids to be that way. Yeah, it cost her money, but it's for a great cause.
Yeah, absolutely. And really it's just like conservation as a whole in this day and age. It's all about collaboration, working with other stakeholders. In Wyoming, that involves many private landowners, federal and state partners, the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, of course, but it takes the individual sportsman and sportswoman as well. We all have skin in the game in the arena of conservation. And if you care about wild things and wild places, then there are many conservation groups. That's the one thing that's great about God's Perfect Square is Wyoming is host to many, and there's an opportunity with many different groups to get involved. And whether that's boots on the ground and leather gloves and projects in the summertime or stuff behind the scenes and working on policy stuff, yeah, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity when you talk conservation and preserving and protecting the things that we hold so dear.
And volunteering is a great way to give back. If you can't afford to donate or you can't afford to be a member of the Muley Fanatics, you can always volunteer. They have some great programs. And I have to ask, Josh, anything fun or funny from Mule Deer Days? I'm mainly talking about Cody Robbins because, he's a goofy man.
That guy is just such a goofball. He certainly was a highlight of the event for those that wanted to visit with him. And he hosted a seminar while we were there talking about a recap of the guy lives the life when it comes to hunting. He spent about an hour on a seminar just recapping the hunts that he was a part of last year in 2024. And that's what he does for a living. But gosh, to be on those adventures and to have those experiences that he had last year, it's a life worth living for sure.
I think it's really cool that Cody Robbins, Live to Hunt with Cody and Kelsey, has chosen and wanted to represent and be a star for the Muley Fanatic Foundation. He's known all over the world. He was Jim Shockey's cameraman.
Yeah, it's pretty humbling when I think about that. But the guy's passion for mule deer, he's he just loves it. And it's not forced, it's not fake, it's not just to promote his show. He absolutely just adores mule deer, and he shared with the crowd firsthand on the Friday night at the dinner that we had, the Kuyu Deer Camp, the devastation that chronic wasting disease has had on the herd in his area in Saskatoon. And in western Wyoming, it's not as prevalent as it is in other parts of the Cowboy State, but boy, when you live with it and you deal with it firsthand and on an intimate daily basis in your own backyard, the devastation is real. And he spoke at great lengths about, hey, this is coming, and what it will do is absolutely horrendous. And it was an eye opener for those of us that live in western Wyoming, that we see or we hear about a positive test in a new herd unit every year, but you give this some time and it takes hold, and it can absolutely hit a herd.
Yeah, we have a lot of it here in central Wyoming where I'm at. As a matter of fact, my 80-acre property used to be littered with mule deer, and now it's only whitetail, which now that I live here, I'm really bummed about, of course, but also it's just a reminder. We talk about the gentleman Neil that you had on your podcast, and he's in his 90s, and what he saw with the mule deer numbers in central Wyoming or other areas too. And it's just crazy. And so with Mule Deer Days, I imagine that CWD conversation, I think Game and Fish had, or seminar, as was pretty well attended.
Yeah, that, in fact, of all the seminars, that one probably had the highest attendance, which was great, because we've had this same seminar, at least in content or subject matter, the last couple of years with the other two Mule Deer Days events that we've had. And it really didn't have the priority, I think, that I thought it deserved. So to see that many people attend that seminar on Saturday morning, that was a very positive sign. I think that just is a testament that people are taking note and wanting to learn more. Your area, though, since you called it out specifically, I'm going to share with you the project herd. That herd has the highest prevalence of all herd units in the entire state, and it's near 80%. That's significant.
But I love what you guys are doing, the Muley Fanatic Foundation. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Josh, but also thank you to Game and Fish and Cody as well for making sure that those are seminars that have a lot of knowledge to them. Since I wasn't in attendance, even though I wanted to, but I was getting ready to fill in for Jake, can I ask, was there any light at the end of this very dark tunnel?
Yeah, I think the light at the end of the tunnel is, it really comes down to the individual level. I think we often talk, or there are efforts to point fingers at a state agency or their conservation groups that get involved, but we're all in this together. And I tried to impress upon folks at our life member only gathering, let's challenge ourselves to know that each one of us have a role. Citizen science is very important, but the sportsmen and sportswomen at every level. And I think there's a huge success in the fact that we had so many folks that attended Mule Deer Days, that if a fraction of those folks were able to just take hold to the message that, maybe I do need to get a little bit more involved. It wasn't that long ago that a season setting meeting had a room full of people. And nowadays, even all the mule deer meetings that the Game and Fish Department hosted around the state last year, I attended many of those meetings, and many times there were more red shirts in the room than it's on our watch right now of our responsibilities and our stewardship care. Let's get involved. Let's just put a little bit more effort. And that was the challenge. Not to be necessarily involved with Muley Fanatic Foundation or any other group, but just be involved in the process. And we've seen this past legislative session, we've seen a lot of bills that were wildlife related or eccentric, and that's going to continue to come. And it's going to take sportsmen and sportswomen to be involved and let our wildlife management agency do their job and have the experts and the science speak volumes to what the decisions are being made.
And you know what I love about being a member of the Muley Fanatic Foundation is I always get a sense of pride. And I'm not sure who came up with the idea to have this scholarship program and the MFF Fellow, but the Muley Fanatic Foundation, and one of the reasons I love being a part of it, is you guys have decided to invest time and money into sound science. And by doing so, you have the scholarship and the MFF Fellow. And every time I talk about it, I just have a sense of pride.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for saying that, Charene. An MFF Fellow is unique in that we don't know, and Dr. Monteith, he had done what research he could just to try to see if there had ever been a fellow working on a PhD project that was specific to mule deer. He wasn't able to turn anything up on that, and I would imagine that he would have had the resources to be able to identify that. We launched that 3 years ago, our first MFF fellow. Now Dr. Taylor Lashar has moved on to a professorship at Utah State University. And the second MFF fellow, Rebecca Rafferty, just an outstanding human being and a fabulous scientist. And I think we're in good hands with her work that she'll do over the next couple of years. But yeah, it is. It's the old adage of put your money where your mouth is. You're going to support science. It's one thing to support a project, but it's a completely different wheelhouse to support an individual that is doing work specific on mule deer in what I believe national treasure, our Wyoming range herd in western Wyoming. So it's a very field intensive job, a lot of moving parts to that. There's a lot of information out there. I've tried to have her on the podcast a few times just to talk about the details because there's so many and it's always evolving and moving and changing. And then you get variables like weather that change the effort. And yeah, we're very proud to be aligned with that. I would say, much like you, I think it's just a great sense of pride to be able to know that you have a small part in doing this.
You had an episode on your I think it was Taylor Lashar. I want to say maybe it was Rebecca Rafferty. It was the summer you started, and it was after that crazy winter where we just had devastation. And she recounted or recapped kind of an experience she had and getting all of these dings on these mortality collars. And she had such a love relationship with these animals. I was crying in that podcast. I could feel it.
Yeah. And her ability to be able to share the experience. Yeah. If you listen to that and it doesn't pull at your heart, then maybe you just don't understand the significance. But yeah, you talk about carnage and just that 2-week window where every 20 minutes a mortality signal was being received, and knowing that these weren't critters that just were exhausted. These were critters that starved to death. And that's a very painful way to go out. They recovered all the collars and then did the necropsy on these critters, and to see that their bone marrow had just been depleted, to know that they lived until their very last breath, just trying to hang on. And yeah, you're right. That was pretty touching. I'll remember that for all my years. That's
Me too.
Permanently stored in my mental Rolodex, despite wishing it hadn't been.
Josh, one of my favorite things that the Muley Fanatic Foundation does is the Putting the U in Hunt program. How are things going, making plans for this next year?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because this program survives by word of mouth. And what the program is a program that we have had since our inception to put youth with terminal or life-threatening illnesses in the field. We do 8 of these hunts a year, and we have 2 openings. And the HIPAA laws prevent us from being able to go to schools or hospitals to get this type of data or to be able to recruit or find and reach out to folks that might be interested. But if you know of a youth, and it doesn't matter where they live, we've had youth that represent now 38 of the 50 states. And again, it doesn't matter. They can come from Connecticut, South Carolina, Arkansas. If you just reach out to us and let us know and give us the contact information to reach out to the parents or the guardian, we'll take it from there. But it's an exciting program. It's a life-changing program. It's really beyond my vocabulary to share what impact it has, not only for these families. We always bring out the youth and then mom and dad. We've had families that needed to bring out the other siblings as well, just because they didn't have folks at home that could help watch kids while they were gone, or maybe the kids were too small. No limitations to the program. As far as the number that participate, we fly them into Rock Springs. We have elk hunts that we do in, in Southwest Wyoming. We have an elk hunt that we do in Area 100, that red desert country. And then we do an elk hunt up by Sundance. And we've done a pronghorn hunt up there as well. But this is a program that, while it's small in our overall activity as an organization, it's probably the most impactful and the most, certainly most meaningful. If anybody that is associated with this can attest, it's phenomenal. And there's opportunity if folks want to get involved. Certainly packing out elk is not for everyone, but we can always use more willing people to be involved and go on these hunts with us. And it's life-changing. What it really does is it humbles you to the point to realize that you take for granted when you get out of bed every morning and you walk to the bathroom or the coffee pot. There are folks that we hope that nobody ever has to go through these circumstances, and in a perfect world, we wouldn't. But that's not the case, and we've had 112 children go through the program. All of them have had harvest success. The success of the program isn't the harvest of the animal. It's the break in the regimen of their daily routine to just come to a place, see this great, vast, wide open spaces that Wyoming affords, and be hunters and share and celebrate that and the heritage that we hold so dear.
And I was lucky enough to go on a hunt a couple winters ago, and Josh mentioned, and we go back to volunteerism and ways to give back, whether it's volunteering at Mule Deer Days for a few hours or reaching out and helping with the Putting the U in the Hunt program. You need folks, because I'm always amazed at the crew like Rowdy Anderson. He has a full-time and a half job. He's got 3 extremely active children. He's also a lover of hunting himself. But during hunting season, he takes a full week off of work and time with his family, and he dedicates that to finding those kids an animal. And there's a number of folks that do that for the Muley Fanatic Foundation, and it is just awe-inspiring.
Yeah, Rowdy, you talk about salt of the earth. Rowdy's a very close friend of mine, very close, and his whole family is wired that way, and it starts with mom and dad. It starts at the dinner table, and he's raising good stock for Wyoming, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Josh, I have to talk about one other thing because I love it, and I think it's really cool that the Muley Fanatic Foundation also spends some time on it. But your podcast, Wild Things and Wild Places, how's that going? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's coming up on 2 years here in just a couple months. We launched that on the 4th of July intentionally in 2023 as our nod to just know and say that we couldn't even have the blessings of being able to talk about mule deer or mule deer conservation if it wasn't for the sacrifice that many have made. This is our time on the timeline of history, and what are we doing? And we're not that far removed from a time when folks dropped everything for freedom. And that resonates with me very deeply. That sacrifice allows and affords us to be able to live in a nation, to be able to express our freedom on a daily basis. And when you get to do that every day, you take it for granted because it's just everything you've ever known and have always known. But so we launched it intentionally just to be mindful of that. The episode comes out every Tuesday, and that's initially, there's no way I could have forecasted almost 2 years worth of episodes, now nearing 100, that how would we continue to find and maintain worthy? But for whatever the reason is, and because you edit all of the podcasts and you produce that, I think we have done a pretty bang out job of always keeping it fresh and keeping it interesting. I've never felt like we've had a podcast where we were just trying to fill the space because we had to have a deadline and we had to have something out to maintain the consistency. Every week has been able to provide an opportunity to showcase something that is directly tied to the effort. And I'm pretty proud of it, quite frank. It's meant a lot to me just to be able to meet and visit with a lot of people. And I've said it many times, we have a bunch of wonderful resources in Wyoming, natural and wildlife, but our greatest resources are people. And this has been an opportunity to meet many of them. And so I've enjoyed it immensely.
You just do a phenomenal job. Not only are you a great host, but you genuinely care. You're always thinking about new content, whether you're talking about promoting sound science, you're talking about an event, putting the U in hunt. There's been podcasts where Josh is talking to a family. Their kid is wheelchair bound. They're on the podcast, and you're getting this emotion, and you're getting ready for a hunt. And this kid is so excited. There is every angle on your podcast. And I think that's what keeps it fresh, is you really have come full circle with all of your content and your episodes. So I hope people subscribe to Wild Things and Wild Places. You can find it on any podcast channel, also muleyfanatic.org. You can find a whole list of the episodes there. One of my favorites was Governor Gordon and Bob Budd.
And those two play off each other so well.
So great.
Certainly Governor Gordon, just the man he is, the position he holds, it's a worthwhile effort to hear the governor's take on issues related to wildlife. But gosh, Bob Budd, you talk about a storyteller.
Yep.
Man, dude, I would love if someone says, all right, you have an opportunity to have, you get 6 hours to sit around a campfire with guy, who would it be? We may need an adult beverage, but I'm telling you, it'd be Bob Budd all day long. Yeah, I just love that guy. And some people, when they speak, you just shut up and you listen because they reek of wisdom and experience. That's where that guy is. I just texted him a few weeks ago. I was on my way to Riverton, and every time I pass the Red Canyon, comes to mind every time for the 12 years he spent there and the stewardship care that he has for the land, the working lands, our wildlife. And yeah, I don't know, that guy's in my top 5 favorite people of Wyoming for sure.
I agree. I got to meet him at Camo at the Capitol a couple years ago, and he was just hilarious. His mustache, too, just makes him super professional seeming.
Yeah, he's got that iconic, I don't know, that the old Westerns with Sam Elliott and Tom Selleck, they were just like the aura of good. And that's where I put Bob Budd.
I did have one last question. I know we're running out of time and I've kept you. I could talk to Josh Coursey, though, pretty much all day long. I did want to ask on if you are involved any other roles, because something I love about you, Josh, is you serve on boards and roles to try to make a difference in other areas, not just for mule deer. Are you serving on any boards or roles for organizations?
Yeah, so right now I'm still in the middle. Well, I'm at about the middle point of a 3-year term that was an appointment from Secretary Holland when she was the Interior Secretary for the Bureau of Land Management Resource Advisory Council. We'll be meeting again on April 23rd. That effort has had some ebbs and flows of real active and consistent efforts, and then some that have just gone by the wayside. But I would like to give a nod out to director of our state BLM, Andrew Archuleta. He's a good leader, and he's really put the effort in to bring the BLM Resource Advisory Council back to an active state. And right now we're navigating a change in administration and a new director to be. But it's an important effort that folks all over from across the Cowboy State that are serving in this capacity get to have an opportunity to be able to work with our federal partners and talk about the issues at the landscape level. And so I really value that opportunity. But here recently, one that I'm incredibly excited about, I was just appointed to the Wyoming Stock Grower Land Trust Board of Directors. And that's huge for me personally, primarily because I realize and recognize that 50% of our state is made up of private lands. And that private landowner is such a key element to a healthy habitat that our critters may winter or summer on. And so I have a lot to learn. I've never been a rancher or owned a large piece of land, and their efforts with conservation easements I have certainly supported and been aligned with and have helped fund. But this is an effort and a process that I'm going into it very green. I'm going to do a lot more listening and a lot more learning, and then let that grow into understanding and knowledge, and then assist where I think I can. But I'm very excited, and the people that I've already been able to interact with and get to know that are on that board, first class. So.
All right, Joshua Coursey, Muley Fanatic Foundation, also the host of the podcast Wild Things and Wild Places. P.S. I am not getting my dad jokes in the morning, and you're in trouble.
It happened. This is the true story. I don't know how long I've had an Android, all my life. I don't know if the original cell phones, the flip phones, were called Androids, but I have always had some sort of Android phone. And my phone went out last Tuesday prior to Mule Deer days. You talk about stress level. It was through the roof. That thing's my office. So I went to the Verizon store, and yeah, we can fix your phone, but we got to send it off. And I can't be without a phone. It's unfortunate, and I hate it more than anyone that it's a ball and chain. But they had a promotion that would no cost at all. I could turn my phone in regardless of whether it was in working condition or not. And they would give me a new one, but it was an Apple. And so I have switched to an Apple, and it is like trying to learn a new language. It's completely backwards to me. I'm struggling.
I like that you have an iPhone now because I can see the little blue thing. It's blue now when you text me or I hear from you, but I understand it's a learning curve. I'm sorry you had to
be patient.
Yeah. Yeah. I expect when you can get us back on the dad jokes, but all right, Josh, we'll let you go today. I hope people subscribe to the podcast.
Charene, thank you so much. You're doing a bang up job. Good job.
Thank you.